Ambassador, good morning. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you. Peace, peace.
We are delighted to have you. This is Professor Piga speaking from the University of Rome Tor Vergata. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Professor.
So I'm going to briefly introduce you. We have some problems with the microphone, so we have to exchange microphones every time. And so please bear with me. I'm going to introduce you, and then I'm going to show the classroom in front of you here at the University of Rome Tor Vergata, okay?
Thank you, please.
Thank you so much. So, students, good morning. It's a great honor for me to introduce to you Ambassador Junha, Ambassador of the Popular Republic of China in Italy. Ambassador Li has an extreme experience in his career. He is currently as I said, the ambassador in Italy, but between 1997 and 2008, he was twice representative of his country at the United Nations. And between 2010 and 2012, he was the ambassador of China to the Union on Myanmar. This is a very brief and short resume of a very long career. Ambassador, I'm going to leave you typically as it is customary for the Festival of Diplomacy, which I wish to thank for the organization of this event. We wish to leave you approximately 15 minutes, if that is okay with you. And then there's going to be a Q&A with you of all the students.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to turn the computer so that you will be able to see the students while you speak, okay, in front of me.
Okay, good, good.
Thank you, Ambassador.
It's my turn, right? Good. Well, good afternoon, dear professor and the dear students. It is my very, very pleasure to meet you all through this VCT. Thank you so much, Professor, for your kind introduction on my career. At the outset, I would like to thank the Diplomacy Festival for bringing us together, and also for its continuous efforts in promoting exchanges among the different cultures. Of course, a special thanks to Dr. Giorgio Bartolomucci for his all-kind arrangements. And also special thanks to the global governance students from Tor Vergata University. Your presence this afternoon means that you are interested in knowing China better. I hope our meeting this afternoon can be helpful to you and to me. So, as you know, nowadays, China has certainly become a favorite of the global headlines. Hardly a day will pass by without China stories. But it is not an easy task to truly know and understand China. If approaching China stops at the reading Western media coverage without setting feet on China's vast land, without feeding it firsthand, then I have to say that one can hardly unveil the real China. So for starters, I wish to share three basic historical facts about China. First, she has created a brilliant civilization. The 5,000 years Chinese civilization has made deliverable contributions to human progress. Take a well-known name that you all know, Confucius, for example. His teaching, like working for the common good, is a righteous cause, and the four corners of the world coming together and uniting as one have become an organic part of the Chinese civilization, grown into the genes of the Chinese people, and it also molded the way we think and we act now. Second, she has withstood untold suffering. After the Opium War of 1840, China was gradually reduced to semi-colonial, semi-feudal society, the country fallen apart, and her people plunged into an abyss of misery. Foreign invasions and decayed feudal ruling pushed China to the premises of demise. Facing such doomed fate, the Chinese elites exhausted almost all means to revitalize the nation. From a constitutional monarchy to a tripartite separation of powers, from a parliamentary system to a presidential system, they tried them all, but unfortunately, all ended in failure, and none of those could save China. Third, she found a way to national rejuvenation. 100 years ago, the Communist Party of China was born. Since the very day of its founding, the party has made seeking happiness for the Chinese people and the rejuvenation for the Chinese nation as its sole aspiration and mission. It has been upholding Marxism as the guiding ideology and adapting it to the Chinese context. The pace of socialism with the Chinese characteristics, forged through innumerable hardships and great sacrifices over the past century, best fits China's actual conditions. Holding onto this pace under the leadership of the CPC, China has created one miracle after another. With this backdrop, we should also be aware that China now has entered a new era where she is deepening connections with the rest of the world, and also is expected more by the rest of the world. Therefore, a key question asked at many occasions is how China will be. Well, let me share my perspectives with you to understand a multi-dimensional China in the new era. First, a China that commits to people first. Last year, encountering the unprecedented pandemic, President Xi Jinping clearly stated to put the people and the life first. A total of 346 medical teams composed of more than 42,000 medical workers from across the country were mobilized and dispatched to assist Hubei province, the epicenter at that time. The response is driven by the commitment to the people. No effort spared and no life left behind. Now, by the end of last month, China has delivered more than 2.2 billion doses domestically, fully vaccinating more than 1 billion of its citizens, a major milestone in the vaccination efforts against the COVID-19. Communist Party of China, you heard a lot, has one single goal in mind in all its undertakings. That is to satisfy the people's longing for a better life. In the past 8 years, China has lifted nearly 100 million rural residents out of absolute poverty. In accordance with China's current poverty line, a total of 770 million rural residents have shaken off poverty since the beginning of the reform and the opening up over 40 years ago, which accounted for more than 70% of the global total, according to the UN report. Well, of course, eliminating absolute poverty is not the end point, but on the contrary, a new starting point to achieve common prosperity. Second, a China that commits to innovation-driven development. As widely reported, China has achieved significant progress in space exploration, infrastructure building, and intelligent manufacturing, with new renovations, 5G networks, big data, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, so on and so forth, are a part of the daily life in China now. Well, China's high-speed train will not fail to impress anyone who has ever experienced it. By the end of last year, China's high-speed railway recorded an operating mileage of 38,000 kilometers, with a maximum operating speed of 350 kilometers per hour. To put that in context, with no bullet train, it would take more than 13 hours from Beijing to Shanghai. But with bullet train, it takes only about 4 hours. To help you understand it better, that means your travel from Milan to Naples and then back to Milan in just about 4 hours. Another case in point is mobile payment. I guess everyone has a mobile now. It is so widely accepted in China that with just a cell phone in hand, you can order and pay your food, buy things from the street vendors, and also do shopping in any store anywhere. The same is true for big expenses like buy a car or an apartment in China. Such ease and convenience are made possible by advanced mobile payment technology and digital upgrade of public services. Third, a China that commits to green development. In my hometown in Fujian province, in the southeast part of China, there's a small river called Mulan River, and the local people are always likely to call it the Mother River. Over the past decades, unfortunately, the river was heavily polluted and floods hit almost every year. So the Crying River perhaps is a new name for her. But when I returned to my hometown about 3 years ago, Mulan River has taken on a complete new look. It is clean and clear. The local people and government have dedicated more than 20 years to growing trees in its upper ranges, treating pollutions in the middle, and strengthening environmental supervision in the lower, returning the dignity of a mother river to Mulan. As you know, China has declared to peak carbon emission by 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. This decision is not to be taken slightly, because for the journey from carbon peak to carbon neutrality, the EU aims at 71 years, and the US 43 years, while China's goal is about 30 years. This journey is bound to be tortuous and bumpy, but we will honor our commitment because we care for our own environment and we owe it to the future generations to protect our common home. Fourth, a China that commits to openness and cooperation. In a globalized world, China's economy rises and falls with the others. Of course, vice versa. China offers a mega-scale market with a population of more than 1.4 billion and a middle-income group of 400 million. China's imports are expected to be more than 22 trillion US dollars over the next 10 years. the China International Import Expo, held in Shanghai every year since 2018, offers a tailored platform for the global companies to do business with China. In 2020, China signed on the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, namely RCEP. Thus, the world's largest free trade zone was created together. Belt and Road Initiative, which I believe all of you may have heard a lot, best illustrates China's commitment to the openness and cooperation. Born as an international public good, it focuses on strengthening connectivity, pragmatic cooperation, and cultural exchanges, and follows the principle of extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits. Over the past 8 years, the total trade volume between China and the BRI partners has exceeded $9.2 trillion, and the Chinese direct investment in countries along the route has surpassed $130 billion. But more importantly, tens of thousands of new jobs were created for the local people in advancing the BRI. Going forward, China will deepen its reform and opening up, better coordinate the internal and external markets, and continue to bring the world new opportunities through its steady development. First, a China that commits to multilateralism. Over the past 70 years since its founding, the People's Republic of China has never provoked a single war, nor invaded a single square of foreign land. China is and will be a builder of world peace, a contributor of the global development, a defender of the international order, and a provider of the public goods. Solidarity and multilateralism have never been more important, as challenges facing by the world are so many and so complicated. We are all stakeholders when it comes to transnational problems like fighting the pandemic, reviving the economy, and tackling the climate change. Only true multilateralism and the equal-footed dialogue can lead us to a solution and safeguard our common interests. To this end, China appeals to adhere to the purposes and the principles of the UN Charter, uphold the order and justice underpinned by international law, shoulder responsibility, and focus on constructive action. We have witnessed enough evidence that the zero-sum games, power politics, and even military interventions are no problem solvers, but on contrary, troublemakers. China advocates to build a human community with a shared future, ready to work with all countries and peoples to promote the shared human values: peace, development, fairness, justice, democracy, and freedom, so as to create a better future for all. That all said, that I should also undermine that China is still a developing country with a per capita GDP just over $10,000, which is only 1/3 of Italy's and ranks 63rd in the world. So China still faces daunting challenges along the way towards the all-round development and common prosperity. We expect nothing short of long-term and arduous efforts. But whatever comes to our way, we are fully confident of our future, because we have a strong party, a right pace, a good vision, and a firm determination. So, dear professor and students, from the stories of the ancient Rome achievements to the Renaissance, so much of Western civilization is rooted in Italy. And from the four greater invention to the philosophy of harmony between the mankind and the heaven, so much of the Eastern civilization is reflected by China. People living in these two countries, or these two cradles of a civilization, started the friendly exchanges many centuries ago. Different social system, different cultural backgrounds aside, China and Italy have been inspired by each other's civilization, benefiting from the win-win cooperation and supporting each other in difficult situations. You're all in major global governance. I do hope that your study will lead you to see the importance of China and Italy partnership. Devote yourself to bring in the East and the West closer and contribute your share to improving global governance. If I may, I would like to offer 3 small tips for you, which I trust would be beneficial to your understanding of China. Number 1, make your moves. You have heard a lot about China, good or bad. It is time to take a look by yourself. China has so many places and aspects worth exploring. Learn some different and brilliant ethnic culture and traditions. Taste some different but delicious food, and have some fun talking to the local people. And you will be amazed by what you discover. Next year is China-Italy Year of Culture and Tourism. China will also host the Beijing Winter Olympics. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to have some real China experiences, which I'm convinced will be wonderful. Number 2, broaden your horizons. An old Chinese saying goes like, the wider your information reader covers, the better informed you will be. Otherwise, you are bound to be blindfolded. Get information from diverse sources, and you are in a better position to understand things that as they truly are. So besides your daily BBCs or ABCs, or whatever Western media you need to read for input, please also give the Chinese media reports a shot. Or even better, challenge yourself to learn some Chinese. What I'm trying to say is, if you truly want to gain a deeper sense of China, Voice of China deserves a chance to be heard. Number 3, open up your hearts. What else is better than making some new friends? I hope you will give us more time and a good opportunity to develop the new friendship with the Chinese people, whoever they may be, your fellow student, your fellow Chinese students, the Chinese people you meet in Rome or on the foreign trips. Spend time and efforts on cultivating more friendship, and you will see what a friend can do in bringing a new world closer to you. Well, professor and students, I believe that is enough from me, and thank you so much for your patience. I sincerely hope that you find it helpful. So now it's your turn. I will be very open to your question and do my best to give you my answers. Thank you.
Hear me?
Oh, yes, yes, of course.
Okay. I don't know if you have heard the large applause that the students have done. I think that the problem with the microphone has prevented you from hearing the big applause, but you must have seen it on video that the students have given to your speech. Thank you, Ambassador, for sharing with us, with this very informative presentation, the challenges and the dramatic developments that the People's Republic of China has been facing and is about to face. I also want to thank you personally for inviting the global governance students to visit China so as to better understand China. I myself have traveled 7 times to China in the past 7 years, and I think that what you said is extremely, extremely true about visiting China and discovering it for yourself. Now, as you know, the global governance students are very eager to ask you questions. The way we're going to do this is we're going to call one by one the students here. I hope you will be able to hear them, but you will, to answer, please just wait for 1 minute that we put back the microphone on so that everybody can hear, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. So we start, the students are going to introduce themselves. They're gonna say the first name, last name, and then they are going to ask the question and listen to your answer. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Ambassador. My name is Erin Demirtaş. I'm from Turkey, Istanbul.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. My question is, does People's Republic of China thinks that Taiwan will be willing to seriously consider diplomatic peaceful reunification with the mainland following the difficulties Hong Kong faced during its integration to the China with the passing of national security law, which made observation worldwide that China reverted back to its principle of one country, one system from one country, two systems?
Well, thank you. Thank you for a question that I won't be surprised by asking question in connection with the Taiwan question. As you know that now there are a lot of media reporting in connection with the latest development in Taiwan. But let me say, you know the history of this episode. Taiwan has been an integral part of China since the ancient time, as we always said it. And people from both sides of the Taiwan Strait remains in the same family. We are all Chinese. So you perhaps noticed that last Saturday, Beijing marked the 110th anniversary of Revolution 1911. And also, this event was marked by the people in Taiwan. So both sides of Taiwan Straits recognizes that the same leader, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, who has said that the unification was the hope of all Chinese people, and they would benefit if the nation unified and suffered if it did not. So I guess that's the common aspiration of all people from across the strait. And now China has more than 170 countries established diplomatic ties. All of them recognize that there is only one China in the world, and Taiwan is a part of the Chinese territory. So Taiwan question is a pure internal matter to China. And we never ever would invite or allow the foreign intervention or foreign involvement. So to Chinese people, it's a very, very common aspiration, a safeguard mission or sacred mission, I would say, to achieve the complete reunification. Of course, we have tried the peaceful reunification for decades, but I would say much progress have been achieved, but still a long way to go. However, permanent separation is not an option. we have the will and determination and wisdom to achieve that goal. As an English saying goes, where there is a will, there is a way. So that I think that now one country, two systems is a very pragmatic solution or vision to settle down this issue. We are patient, but however, what we cannot tolerate is any form of Taiwan independence. That's something, it's absolute red line. It's an invitation to the military intervention. So I hope that I give you my answer. And if I may suggest, you may also find some time to read or to check one Chinese law, which China's People's Congress adopted, I think 16 years ago. We called it the law, the anti-secession law. In that law, we stipulate all the relevant provisions in the law about Taiwan question. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Nicoletta, GG2 from Italy. Thank you very much for being with us and for giving us the chance to clarify our doubts. Mine is the following one.
I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry, I can't get your voice clearly. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me better?
Oh yeah, now it's better.
Okay, so I am Nicoletta, GG2 from Italy. Thank you very much for being with us and for giving us the chance to clarify our doubts. Here it is mine. So during the General Assembly, President of the United Nations, President Xi Jinping announced that China will no longer finance the construction of new coal plants abroad and will seek to promote more renewable production methods in developing countries. Of course, this decision is an important step in the fight against climate change. However, an even more decisive change would have come if the Chinese government, the largest producer of greenhouse gases in the world, had decided to halt the use and the construction of these plants in its own territory. So, in your opinion, will China try to implement a similar project in the future? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question on climate change. Let me say first, in my opening remarks, I said that China has committed to achieve the carbon emission or the peak of carbon emission by 2030, and the carbon emission neutrality by 2060. To realize that kind of a commitment, we need a very scientific research and a comprehensive study. We need to work out the roadmap and the timetable. I guess China will join with other international partners in this very demanding or challenged process. One thing I want to underline that China is a developing country at the present moment and will be as a developing countries for a long time to go. So industrialization and urbanization is our primary objectives and is now move forward. So in this process, I guess for our energy demand, certainly will keep its momentum and grow for a while. But what we want to do is to gradually reduce our coal-burned electricity. But if you ask me how soon that we can materialize it, I'm afraid to say I can't give you a specific answer now. We certainly will count on our scientists, policymakers to conduct a well-informed and thorough research. And then they will present their recommendations to the Chinese People's Congress. And then the Chinese Parliament will enact the relevant legislation. Then it will be executed. But let me say, in my understanding, to cut the carbon emission or to reduce the carbon emission is to sustain the development better, but not to blockade development or to kill the development. So in this process, one key element that we need to take into account, that is the per capita emission. I don't know whether you heard or not, according to the scientists, the cumulative per capita CO2 emissions for China now is about 160 tons, but the global average is 210 tons. For G7 members, the average is 950. Of course, the US was the leader or is the leader. The average for US citizen is 1,250. So let's have said that to tackle worst climate change, we need a well-coordinated efforts among all stakeholders. At the same time, we need to be very, very stick to the common but differentiated responsibility. So each stakeholder will do and honor its commitment. With regard to the China's energy mix, I agree with you. Now the coal-burned electricity is a very predominant factor or indicator. But of course, we are catching up with others. Now, China has installed the world's largest capacity and the production capacity from the renewable energy. Now, the clean energy accounts for about 24%, almost 1/4. And I guess in the coming years, the coal burning electricity or coal burning energy certainly would drop in its total energy mix. You took note that we have committed to stop building new facilities abroad, so we will honor that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Marie Ziba. I'm a GG2 from Germany. And the question is, how can the goal of common prosperity address the problems and inequalities experienced by domestic and foreign migrant workers in China and the rural population left behind in the process of rapid urbanization?
Well, this is quite a big question. Let me say first, to achieve common prosperity is a common aspiration for almost all peoples in all countries. To eliminate disparity between the rich and the poor is a very tough challenge for all governments in all countries. I guess perhaps you read that by last June, IMF sent or signaled a warning that disparity is increasing. It represents the most serious challenges at the present moment or in times to come. So for China, second point is that for China, we never ever were shied away from this existing disparity issue. So we made our commitment and announced to the Chinese people and also to the world. We will build a common prosperity for all peoples, since we have already achieved a moderate, prosperous society in all respects. Just now I mentioned that we eliminated the absolute poverty. It's a landmark in our efforts towards that. At the beginning of this year, my government and my parliament enacted the 14th five-year plan, and it also enacted the long-range objectives through the year 2035. So what we focus on is to reduce the disparity through enlarging the cake or the big cake, or enlarge the cake and better divide it. So in that sense, everyone or every individual will feel that the social justice and social balance. So in that sense, the whole nation will move toward that kind of long-term objective in a very, very steady manner. I hope that I explained my perspective with you. If you have any further query about it, I would be very happy to share my views with you.
Yes, so specifically, how would that be possible, for example, for the rural population left behind in urbanization?
Well, it is true that a small number of people or groups now were not as better as the urban citizens. But I guess each and every government is not capable to ensure that all people reach the same standard at the same time. It would take sometimes, and the more efforts need to be from central government, local government, and also the economic entities or companies they work for. So that's a joint effort. I guess this is something that my country is doing. But if you ask me what would be the specific measures or steps, I have to say we have introduced a number of them that I guess if you are interested, you may check this through the website. And of course, I would ask my economic and commerce section to update you with more detailed information if you are interested.
So good afternoon. Thank you, Ambassador. I am Simone and I'm a second-year student of public governance. So first of all, thank you so much for your speech. My question is that in the last months, it has been possible to see how European governments took various stances on 5G suppliers, especially on those suppliers considered to be untrustworthy. I'm recalling just the German IT security law. Taking into consideration the fact that Articles 7 and 10 of the Chinese National Intelligence Law potentially endanger the protection of EU data, could you please expand on the approach China is taking on IT issues, and in particular, why it should still be considered a reliable partner for Europe? I'll just recall a part of Article 7 so that everyone can follow. So Article 7 is all organizations and citizens shall support, assist, and cooperate with national intelligence efforts in accordance with law. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. That I felt quite encouraged that you know very details about the Chinese law or China laws. let me say, number one, it's a very common practice for almost all countries to do the legislation to protect national security. And all organizations and individuals are required by the law to cooperate with the government in protecting and safeguarding the national security. I guess it's the same practice in almost all the European countries. My colleagues once told me that in Italy, there's a law, it's called law number 112 of the August 2007. And also, you know that the Italian government and the parliament enacted the Golden Power Law. I guess that's a good example. So in China's national intelligence law, certainly provides the provisions for all the organizations and its citizens. But also it stated clearly that the national intelligence organization need to carry out any activities in accordance with a relevant law to respect and protect human rights and respect and protect the legitimate interest of individuals and organizations. I heard that you mentioned the 5G. To me, 5G is a new high tech which would benefit all the countries. And that is why last decade or so, almost all countries are were very enthusiastic in promoting the research and cooperation. It used to be an excellent record when China and European countries engaged with each other in the 5G exploration and cooperation, and we have accumulated quite good results. But very, very unfortunately, when the United States initiated its blockade against China or against the Chinese companies like Huawei, and then there was a significant changes in European countries, particularly from the European media. I heard a lot of noises about the safety of China's 5G technology. But I have to say that up to now, I did not see and did not hear any very, very solid evidence in this regard. Personally, I believe up to now, the European countries, particularly those ranking officials, even did not say anything publicly about the monitoring conducted by its biggest ally. So that I guess that's a very ironic or sarcastic. On the one hand, there's no evidence on China's 5G technology. On the other hand, they are tagged. So my sense tells me 5G or its technology, when it's research or utilization, we need to be very, very transparent, very, very market-oriented, and it also should be inclusive and fair to each and every country. If a particular country or particular enterprise would be targeted by national strength or by national institutions to cite a very generalized and politicized concept of national security, I don't think this is fair or moral. So to China, we are very clear, we are very firm. We certainly reject this kind of digital security actually, this is not about digital security. It's about seeking hegemony in digital security. So that's my understanding and my perspective.
Good afternoon, Ambassador. I'm Lucrezia Vittoria Natale, and my question is, in recent years, some Chinese investors acquired land for agricultural use in Madagascar, and the demand for land in foreign countries is rising. Does the Chinese government seek to enlarge this project involving other countries? Is this the beginning of a new form of cooperation between China and other countries? Thank you.
Well, first, thank you so much for your question. I'm not so sure that I know the details about the case you referred to, the procurement of the Madagascar land. But let me say, let me answer you in a very general perspective. To me, the cooperation between China and Africa is one of the most important components of China's foreign policy. We started our cooperation with African partners or African brothers, not from last decade. It actually started from last century. And even when China was less developed, we engaged very extensively with our African partners. And a lot of achievements have been registered. I guess you heard, and perhaps your friend visited already. So to China, our cooperation, our support to Africa, individual country or continent as a whole, are actually focused on two dimensions. Number one, on its political independence. That's very, very key component in our policy. Second, to achieve the economic independence by each and every individual country in the African continent. So in our understanding, to achieve that very, very profound objective, we cannot just play the words. We cannot just read through our mouths. But what we count on is our very, very practices and measures. And we need to be very, very patient to listen to our African partners first, to understand their aspiration, their needs, and their objectives, and then to see how we could integrate into their development strategies. I guess you heard that China has developed 3-year plan of action to integrate China's strategy with the Africans one. And also when we talked about a specific project, we always listen to our host and its people, and we'll try to absorb all those legitimate concerns and demands. And based on that, we also will do our best to create the maximized new job opportunities for the local people. So that I guess you heard that over the past 12 years, China maintains the largest trading partners with the African continent. And the China's FDI to Africa last year have reached about $3 billion. So now more than 1,000 cooperative projects is going on. And even under the pandemic hardship. So now altogether, about 50 countries, if I see exact number would be 46 countries in Africa, and then also AU sign on the Belt and Road Cooperation Initiative with China. And so that's the latest update for you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Aldo Greco. I'm a second-year global governance student, and I'm going to ask this question on behalf of my colleagues, Alex, Nur, Alexandra, and myself. Throughout the last few decades, there have been several allegations regarding forced labor and coercive methods of thought reform taking place in the so-called Laogays, which some authors and journalists described as extra-legal detention centers. If the practices, the security measures, and the conditions under which the inmates conduct their daily lives in these now called drug rehabilitation centers were to coincide with what has been described by some witnesses, specifically Uyghurs and the Falun Gong practitioners, the Chinese government would inevitably have to take responsibility for the violation of several international laws, including the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. I was wondering whether you could explain to us which is the response given by the government to such allegations, in the presence of evidence of forced labor, murder, torture, imposing measures to prevent birth, and forced transfer of children, all mentioned in Article 2 of the Convention.
Well, I thank you for asking question, but I have to say that I don't know where information you gathered, but at least it seems to me the perspective of or the contents of your question seems quite biased against China. You cited all those informations perhaps you gathered and heard from different media, but if that is true, I guess everyone may conclude that China now is a hell rather than a paradise. But as a matter of fact, whoever has visited China recently, they may offer you absolutely a different story, absolutely a different picture. So that's why in my opening remarks, I sincerely invite you to pay more attention to the Chinese media and what we try to update our friends abroad. I know you have heard quite frequently from ABC, BBC, or CNN, whatsoever. But I don't know whether you gave the chance to read the Chinese media report, or you have touched upon in the Chinese soil to witness what happened in China by yourself. That's number one, point one. Point two, that you signed on so many international conventions or protocols, whatsoever. I would say China is among those countries which have signed most of international treaties, protocols, agreements than other big nation or Western nation. I want to underline, according to the international law, if we talked about the genocide, there is a very clear-cut definition. I guess you have some question or query about the situation in Xinjiang, particularly with regard to the Uyghur ethnic minority or Uyghur population. Chinese government, and particularly the local government in Xinjiang, has issued a white paper already. The exact figure is, or the accurate figure is, the Uyghur population in Xinjiang has increased from about 5.5 million to more than 12 million. And then the the average life expectancy is from 30 years to 72 years. Just to give you these two figures, I guess it's easy to conclude it. There's no so-called ethnic, or say there's no whatsoever the phenomenon you have described, just so-called a genocide or ethnic genocide. On contrary, recently, most visitors to China, or almost all the visitors to China, domestic, abroad, the government officials, journalists, international institutions, they all concluded that this is the social life in Xinjiang. It's very dynamic. So I really hope that you go to Xinjiang by yourself. And I guess after your trip, then we could be better to engage in our new dialogue or new Q&A. Otherwise, I have to say that when you heard just one side of the information and you neglect the other side, I don't know whether that's true situation or not. So that's what I can offer to you or share with you. And just now you also mentioned the camp. I need to say that there's no such camp at all. Certainly in Xinjiang, the local government established, we called a training center, but this is not the concentration camp. In training center, the students are required to learn the common language, laws, skills on their future profession, and also will do the radicalization process. You know, this is a requirement by the resolutions adopted by the UN Security Council. So it's obligations for all member states to do that. And it's a common practice in most of the countries. Last but not least, let me say, there's no so-called forced labor at all in China because Chinese law prohibits that. I have actually written quite a number of articles, and in the embassy's website, you could also explore it. You are welcome to connect this kind of information. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your answer. I just wanted to add, maybe I should have said it earlier, that my source is actually Chinese. She is Amelia Pang, and it's her book, Made in China. So.
Well, let me say it again. I did not hear any information about the source you just cited as a Chinese source. You know, there are a lot of groups or political groups abroad pretend to be Chinese ones, but their political motivation, their political perspectives, well, you can see that. If you want to get the very authentic, accurate Chinese information, I'm the Chinese ambassador. I'm responsible for all the information I provide to you and to all the friends. So I would treat it as the most authentic and accurate.
Yeah.
Hello, Your Excellency.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, thank you very much for your speech. It was a pleasure listening to you. I'm Rani Al-Sarakidi. I would like to ask you regarding the recent developments in Afghanistan. As we all know, Your Excellency, the United States withdrew from the country, just as it completely fell into the hands of the Taliban. Firstly, given the location of Afghanistan in relation to China, could China stand to benefit from the current situation by filling up a power vacuum left by the US? Moreover, will we see China establishing diplomatic relations with the Taliban government anytime in the near future, given the high-level meetings that took place between the two recently? Thirdly, how could the overall situation affect the regional geopolitics in the region in relation to the Chinese-Indian rivalry, as the former government of Afghanistan enjoyed warm relations with India? And lastly, how could the presence of the Taliban so close to China's border affect China domestically? I am specifically referring to the Uyghurs in Western China. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you for a question regarding to Afghanistan. Now, Chinese embassy in Kabul still under operation. We do maintain our normal contacts with Taliban to communicate with each other and to see how best the Chinese humanitarian assistance could be helpful to the local people and to Taliban to ease their hardship. Perhaps you know that Afghanistan is the one of immediate neighboring countries to China. And our two countries established the diplomatic ties as early as 55. So since then, the diplomatic relationship always remained there. So I don't suppose that there would be a question that for China to re-recognize Afghanistan. The change is the government, it's not the country. As you said, that the situation in Afghanistan has taken fundamental changes already. This is something that I guess every country has to adapt it to it. As a matter of fact, Taliban in Afghanistan or Afghan Taliban is a very dominant military and political force in Afghanistan. And it's one of key players in the region. So after the dramatic changes in Kabul, the Taliban has signaled that very positively in their national building, in counterterrorism, and also the policy towards the neighboring countries. Certainly, from China's perspective, we always articulate that we strongly hope Afghan Taliban will take into account the national and national interest as a whole, and also stick to the reconciliation and peace negotiation with all stakeholders. During the transnational transition period by the interim government, we really hope that the interim government will engage with all ethnic groups and all the political groups in a very, very positive interaction. So they all sign on to, number one, national peace, number two, national reconciliation, number three, national inclusiveness, and then to improve the humanitarian situation. So in that sense, the international community will give more constructive assistance to the Afghan Taliban. With regard to what you described as a power vacuum, I don't suppose China has any efforts or any intention to seek to fill so-called the power vacuum. From the day one, we made clear we respect the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the independence of Afghanistan. We never ever intervened or interfere Afghanistan internal affairs. And we certainly would like to see that China maintain the very, very friendly relationship with all Afghan people, all ethnic groups. So as a neighboring country, China, like others, will certainly hope that Afghan would have, as a new start, as a new starting point, would not fall into the trap of a civil war or domestic turmoil. We really hope that stability, peace, development would be restored. Just now you mentioned about India and Afghanistan relationship. I guess it's up to the two capitals to handle that. China as a neighboring country, we won't comment or involved in any relationship directly related to our neighboring countries. But what just now you mentioned, some terrorist forces in Afghanistan. One thing that I want to share with you, I guess about 2 decades ago, or less than 2 decades ago, the Security Council of the United Nations have listed the one particular terrorist group to the list, that is the ETIM. That group remains most relevant threat to the China's national security. So we hope that all the countries will continue to abide by their responsibility under the resolution of the Security Council to strike this ETIM. So in that sense, no terrorist forces would be in a position to threaten the national security to any country, including China. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ambassador.
Good afternoon.
I am Federico Mancuso, a GG2 student from Rome, and my question is on behalf of my colleague Chiara Alestini. The US, Australia, and the UK announced the AUKUS Security Pact in the Indo-Pacific area. And the China's embassy in Washington accused the countries of a Cold War mentality and an ideological prejudice. So we want to know could the creation of this pact lead to an actual 21st Cold War, and what will the Chinese reaction be? Thank you.
Well, thank you. This is a very pertinent question related to the future or current and the future stability and security in the Asia-Pacific region. Let me be very honest with you. What is the motivation for those 3 countries to sign this latest security pact? Just now you used the word. The Cold War mentality. This is a classic or typical example. For instance, under this new arrangement, US, UK would facilitate Australia to obtain the technology on building nuclear submarines. For what purpose? We have international treaties on this particular area. So that's why many Asian and Pacific countries felt very, very concerned. And we saw that it's an alarming signal. What happened in the future? nobody or those three countries can give a clear explanation to the region, to China, or to the international community. Up to now, we did not hear that. But from China's perspective, at least the motion or the action by AUKUS will trigger three major risks. Number one, as you said, that it's a resurgence of a Cold War mentality. It's for the military confrontation or the geopolitics or whatsoever. But at least it's not for the peace. It's not for the economic and trade, cooperation. Second, this will absolutely extend the trigger to have a sort of armed race in the region. That's why so many countries in the region, or particularly in Southeast Asia, express their concerns, alarming. So I don't know, for those three countries, do they intend to raise or to intensify the arms race in the region, or for what purpose? And third, it will risk the nuclear proliferation. At the present moment, so many UN resolutions or General Assembly resolutions have been adopted to prevent the nuclear prevention, and both US and UK are parties to sign on those treaties. But now their actions actually breaches their promise or their commitments under the international resolutions or conventions. So do we receive any explanation from those three countries, or particularly the two nuclear powers? Nothing yet. So that's from China. Absolutely, we are against that. We object to that. On the contrary, in the last General Assembly debate, my president offers a global development initiative, and we are open-minded to share this to all the UN members, and we encourage and invite all UN members to sign on, to join with China and other partners to promote the further global development to achieve the SDG adopted by UN already. And also, China has announced that we apply the membership for the CPTPP. I guess you heard of it. So this is for what? It's for cross-Pacific trade and economic cooperation, rather than our military contradiction or confrontation. So I guess it's easy for you and for me and for anyone else to draw the conclusions. Who or which country is for peace, for development, and which country is for potential military confrontation or potential nuclear proliferation. So I guess I have answered your question already.
Ambassador, thank you for your question.
Thanks.
Li Dash, ni hao. Citizen in Guanglin. I'm Valerio Nejumi, a second-year global governance student from Italy, and I would like to ask you the following question. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
What are the geopolitical implications intertwined with the Belt and Road Initiative, so IDAILO? Is it a beneficiary fund like the IMF? Is it an economic global investment with commercial outcomes? Or could we talk about a soft power instrument aimed at helping the PRC reaching the second centenary goal? So hence the 2049 main political goal, which also involves the establishment of a lioness Chinese position in the international scenario.
Well, at the very outset, thank you so much for asking questions in Mandarin and Chinese. I was so impressed by your Mandarin. If I may, that I would like to answer your question in Mandarin. So I don't know whether that would be okay or not. Because Mandarin is my mother tongue, and I guess it's a very natural for me to communicate with my friend in my native language. But with regard to the Belt and Road Initiative, as in my opening remarks, I explained it already to a certain extent to China, to international community. I guess one common conclusion is Belt and Road Initiative is the most important international public good so far China has ever offered in the multilateral organization and in our bilateral cooperation. We announced that, or we advocated that the very purpose or the very objective is to promote connectivity, then we could achieve a mutual benefits and to achieve the connection of our mutual development strategies, countries or regions. This initiative actually is opened. It's not included. It's not included. I guess all the countries, if they are interested, they will be most sincerely welcomed to join this initiative, since I indicated that it's not closed the initiative. So what we want to achieve is that by signing on this initiative, everyone can benefit from the advancement and the development. Up to now, there are more than 130 countries sign on this initiative already. I guess all those countries, or the motivation by those countries to sign on this is that this implementation of this initiative will bring the very, very pragmatic benefits to all the countries along the route. So you asked me how this initiative would help China to achieve the second 百年目标. I think this is when we initiated this very profound public good, we did not link those two things together. But what we want to say is, by joining this initiative, certainly China benefits and also other countries benefits, because that would help to intensify the economic, social, cultural, and financial integration or interaction. And so that I think certainly it would be helpful to facilitate China in advance our second objective or century objective. So that's why up to now, we still maintain our very, very original approach or manner. This is open to all countries, including all G7 countries. We are very glad that our host country, Italy, took the leadership to sign on this initiative more than 2 years ago. So that, we hope that the other countries would certainly give a more positive and serious consideration to follow the good example. And I'm sorry that I forgot the second part of your question.
So it was on the second objective, and so if it also involves the establishment of a lionish, let's say, Chinese position in the international scenario.
Sorry, I did not quite get it. I'm sorry that I have to confess that.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes. Please.
Like a stronger position in the international scenario. So which is the second goal of this Road and Belt initiative. Let's say it's not just an economic initiative, as it also some geopolitical implications, a certain kind of soft power. Thank you.
Well, as I explained in my answering and also in my opening remarks, when my president put forward this initiative, we did not have any geopolitics in mind at all. We just humbly put forward this suggestion or initiative for our partners to reflect on, to consider, to see whether or not it would be constructive and beneficial for their development strategies. As I said, that over the past 8 years since the announcement of this initiative, we have accumulated enormous progresses in our economic and trade cooperation. I did not have specific figures about the cultural exchanges, but I'm very positive that under this scheme, the cultural exchanges, particularly the interaction programs between peoples from the countries along the route, were very, very extensified. A lot of social, cultural programs have been initiated and executed. And of course, we also, under this scheme, that we have seen that policy dialogues have been arranged or taken place already, which help us to understand much better with each other, and also to see how the new opportunities could be explored and maximized. But having said that, I once again want to underline, from China's perspective, we never ever have any geopolitical intention while advancing this initiative. It's up to all members. When they join this initiative, we said that it's a joint consultation and joint implementation and shared benefits. So I'm not so sure why some countries still remain the questionable or on the Chinese humble and the sincere motivation and the contribution. If they remain skeptical, really, I mean, it's up to them. I guess with further development and further achievements, most of countries, and particularly most of the people in those countries, can feel this will bring good for them, not by words, by politics, or by whatsoever, but it's by deeds, by actions, by benefits. Thank you.
Ambassador.
Yes, Professor.
I do hope that you have appreciated this very deep and frank exchange, as we all have here.
Yes.
We wish to thank you profusely. I think we all come out of this incredible day with a greater mutual understanding and a promise to visit China from all the students here as soon as they will be able to. So as it's tradition and customary here at Global Governance, on behalf of all the GG2s of the program at the University of Tor Vergata, we're going to thank you profusely now. I hope you can hear us.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Professor and students, thank you so much for this wonderful afternoon. I really benefit from our very sincere and open exchange. I know the time is very limited. What I can promise to you is you are sincerely welcome to China for your 8th time and even 17 times. And also other students, I can assure you, we will do whatever possible to facilitate you to grant visas for you. Also, if the situation improved, I would like to go to visit your campus to talk with the students face to face to further our dialogue. Thank you.
It will be a great honor to have you on campus, Ambassador. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All the best. Bye-bye. Bye.